Welcome to our walkthrough of the Gosset platform. You can think of Gosset as having two main pillars in its platform. On one hand, we have our data, and on the other hand, we have AI agents that use that data to answer questions. Let's dive in. First, we have our Assets tab. This is our comprehensive database of over 100,000 drugs. And for each drug, we have information on the biological targets that they hit, their phase of development, the modality of the drugs, its route of administration, the company developing the drug, and where that company is based. This allows us to quickly filter down to a small subset of drugs that we actually care about. So for example, we can say phase 2 drugs that are antibody drugs, and we can use our ontology of diseases to hone in on a specific disease that we care about. So within oncology, maybe we only care about breast cancer. And now we have a set of phase 2 antibody drugs being studied for breast cancer. For each drug, we have all of the relevant information, and we can click in to see more details, including patents and any other diseases that this drug has also been studied for. In our Targets tab, we cover the biological targets that are hit by at least one drug. For each target, we know both its typical abbreviation and its full name, the phase of development of the furthest along drug that hits this target, and this number of total drugs that have been studied to hit this target. If we click in, we get more information with connections to UniProt, information on the distribution of phase of development of all the drugs that hit this target. For drugs that have failed, we find any released information about the cause of that failure, whether it's a lack of efficacy, a safety concern, business reasons, or enrollment issues. We know all of the diseases that have been studied for drugs that hit this target. And we provide some high-level information on mechanism of action, safety concerns, and an overall description of the target. Our trials database contains fine-grained, structured information on every clinical trial. We know the drugs being evaluated in the trial, their targets, modalities, phase of development, as well as detailed information about the design of that trial. For example, whether it's studying a first-line therapy or subsequent-line therapy, whether it was randomized, placebo-controlled, and what types of endpoints were collected in that trial. And you can search, sort, and filter on all of this information. We also know the ultimate fate of each trial, whether it succeeded or failed, based on multiple definitions of success. We know whether it met all of its endpoints, whether it met at least one of its endpoints, and whether it ultimately progressed to the next phase of development. This allows you to use this dashboard as a benchmarking tool so that you can see how historical trials have succeeded or failed that are similar to the one that you're contemplating. We also offer a machine learning model through an API that provides even more accurate estimates of whether the trial you're contemplating is likely to succeed. Our clinical data covers all safety and efficacy metrics for every trial with published results. We identify every arm of every trial, determine the drug or drug combination that was studied in that arm of that trial, the dose at which it was used, and then extract all safety and efficacy information, and also give you links to the original publication and the trial registry. This allows you to get as close as possible to apples comparisons of drug performance. For example, in this graph here, we're looking at published phase 3 results data for obesity drugs. And because we extract safety and efficacy metrics for each individual time point, we're able to hone in on the 52-week time point. And in addition to body weight, which is just one common endpoint collected in obesity trials, we're able to scroll through and select from many other safety and efficacy endpoints to compare drugs. Our companies database includes information on over 120,000 companies in the life sciences industry, including over 25,000 companies that are developing drugs. For each of these companies, we can see the type of company that they are, whether it's a big pharmaceutical company, a biotech, or others. If they develop drugs, we can see the phase of development of their leading asset, their total number of assets, information on the types of drugs that they develop, the size of the company, and if they're a public company, we can see information on their financial health. If we click in on the company, we can see any indicators that this company might be in financial distress. We get a summary of their pipeline, including the drugs that they're developing, their phase of development, and the diseases that they're being studied for. And we can see information on their lease obligations. Our deals database covers every deal in the life sciences industry. We scan through every press release and every SEC filing to find any mention of any deal. And then we conduct extra research to pull in more information about that deal from other sources. This allows us to get high-level information about the parties that are involved in the deal, what type of deal it's describing, any drugs that are central to the deal, and then we pull in information from other portions of our database so that you can then scan and sort and filter based on deals for drugs that hit a given biological target, or drugs that have a given modality, or that treat a specific disease. You can also filter for deals centered around drugs that are at a certain phase of development. For each deal, we give you high-level summary of the deal, the terms of the deal, and information on the specific drug assets involved, including their modalities, targets, and diseases treated. We also include a link to the original source of information so that you can dive into the original context. Our News tab provides a feed of all the news articles and press releases from across the life sciences industry, but we've done extra work to annotate each article with the diseases that are relevant to the article, the companies, drug modalities, biological targets, and specific drugs. This makes it so that you can discover articles that are relevant to your use case, even if those articles don't necessarily mention the targets, modalities, or diseases that are relevant to the article. For example, if you're searching for antibody therapies for lung cancer that hit a specific target, the article might not mention any of those details. But if it discusses a drug that hits that target that you're interested in and has the modality and treats the diseases that are relevant to your use case, we'll find them because we've paired our news database with our assets database. You can click in an article, get a quick summary, identify the drugs discussed in that article, and get a link to the original source to get more information. Our AI assistant leverages our different data sets to answer your research questions, producing reports, spreadsheets, PowerPoint presentations, and dashboards that are relevant to answer your query. For example, if we wanted to get a comprehensive competitive landscape for KRAS and G12C inhibitors, we'd get a report that looks like this, where we're pulling in primary information from the literature to answer your query, and we give you graphs and tables to help answer your question in visual fashion as well. Not only do we give you this executive summary, but we provide you with the spreadsheet of underlying data, a custom dashboard to answer your query, and a PowerPoint presentation. The spreadsheet gives you all the detailed information that would typically be found in our clinical data dashboard, but in a spreadsheet fashion so that you can analyze the numbers further if you wish and see the underlying source data. Each row is one arm of one clinical trial. In each arm, we've identified the drug or drug combination that was studied, the design of the study, and all of the endpoint data and trial design information. We have information on patient population, efficacy outcomes, safety outcomes, study metrics, and at the end, we always cite our sources, giving you links to both trial registry information and peer-reviewed publications and conference abstracts, as well as press releases that provide the underlying safety and efficacy data that allows for us to provide this comprehensive competitive landscape for the drugs of your specification. Our agents are especially good at tasks related to search and evaluation, asset due diligence, competitive landscaping, and trial design. Gosset Lens provides a suite of research tools that combine our industry-leading data with interactive visualizations. These help you quickly get up to speed on the biological pathways that are relevant for your disease of interest, with detailed information powered by peer-reviewed research citations. And we help you understand the mechanisms of action for the various drugs that target these biological pathways. We give you information on the standard of care with detailed diagrams to help you understand the nuances of current treatment protocols, and provide epidemiology and market size information to help you with forecasting and market size estimates. We provide additional graphics for understanding clinical results data to help you understand how the safety and efficacy of various drugs compare to one another. And lastly, we provide information on drug pipelines to help you understand the timing and development progress of various drug assets.